ربنا ما خلقت هذا باطلا سبحانك فقنا عذاب النار ربنا إنك من تدخل النار فقد أخويته وما للظالمين من أنصار ربنا إننا سمعنا مناديا ينادي للإيمان أن آمنوا بربكم فآمنا ربنا فاغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار ربنا وآتنا ما وعدتنا على رسلك ولا تخزنا يوم القيامة إنك لا تخلف الميعاد صدق الله العلی العظیم. جهت تأجیل در فرج آقا امام زمان اجماعاً صلوات.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. عظم الله أجوركم, brothers and sisters. Today we've gathered here on the third night of Muharram al-Haraam, and Sheikh Mohammed Ali Ismail has been addressing for the past 3 nights on different topics, including starting with the Husseini embodiment of tawakkul, and then moving on with yesterday was the chivalrous youth. And inshallah he'll be addressing on a different topic today as well. Khair, I'll have further announcements later on as we move on with the program. Just an announcement, can I request my brothers just to move a bit closer up, and brothers in the corridor just to move into the central hall, the center hall, so we can make space for people coming and joining us later. Allah salawat Muhammad wa al Muhammad. As I had mentioned earlier, yesterday and on two nights before as well, the donation forms and membership forms are available. And brothers who are interested, they can pick up the forms. I have them over here with me. After the majlis, inshallah, their donation forms, and they can be passed on to the executive committee, Brother Ahmed, to Surfraz uncle. And on the lady side, Sister Tuba can collect the donation forms as well. The other announcement is that, alhamdulillah, we have one volunteer who's usually, most of the time, he tries to be outside in the parking lot, because obviously how these situations have been having around the world. So he has volunteered over here to stand in the parking lot just for security reasons, that La samahullah, if something does happen, inshallah, with all prayers of all the lovers, inshallah there won't be, but however, just as a preparation. So he stands outside just for security purposes. So the other thing, do recite a loud salawat for him being volunteering for his success and health, please. However, this volunteer has noted that sometimes what happens is people who come to the center, one thing that he has noticed is that people tend to empty their cars on the lot, like, you know, littering on the lot. So he has asked to avoid that, to make sure that we leave our lot and the IHS lot and the neighboring lot as clean as possible. Inshallah, we can take care of that. The other thing is that a brother, we found this on the male side. I think these are reading glasses, and if any brother who might have lost them, they can pick them from the podium. Just a few poetic verses of salam, and then inshallah we'll have another mercy, and then the shaykh's talk. Allahu salawat al Muhammad wa al Muhammad. حسین سب تیری قربانیوں کا صدقہ ہے حسین سب تیری قربانیوں کا صدقہ ہے کہ آج تک دل انسانیت دھڑکتا ہے حسین سب تیری قربانیوں کا صدقہ ہے غم حسین میں آنسو پھر اس کے بعد رام غم حسین میں آنسو پھر اس کے بعد رام خرید لو کہ یہ سودا بہت ہی سستا ہے حسین سب تیری قربانیوں کا صدقہ ہے مباہلے کی یہ صورت بتا رہی ہے ہمیں مباہلے کی یہ صورت بتا رہی ہے ہمیں کہ پنجے تن کے مقابل جو آئے جھوٹا ہے حسین سب تیری قربانیوں کا صدقہ ہے کیا جواز ستم ہے زمین کرب و بلا ہے کیا جواز ستم ہے زمین کرب و بلا کہ 3 روز سے مہمان تیرا پیاسا ہے حسین سب تیری قربانیوں کا صدقہ ہے جسے حسین نے 18 سال پالا تھا جسے حسین نے 18 سال پالا تھا زمین گرم پہ وہ ریاں رگڑتا ہے حسین سب تیری قربانیوں کا صدقہ ہے خدا را اس کو تماچے نہ مار اے ظالم خدا را اس کو تماچے نہ مار اے ظالم یہ بچی غم کی ستائی ہوئی سکینہ ہے حسین سب تیری قربانیوں کا صدقہ ہے نہ لوٹ چادر زینب نہ چھین سر سردار، نہ لوٹ چادر زینب نہ چھین سر سردار، یہ بنت زہرا ہے ظالم، یہ بنت زہرا ہے حسین، سب تیری قربانیوں کا صدقہ ہے۔ صلو علی محمد و آل محمد۔ I'd like to request Brother Bilal to inshallah recite some words of poetry in the honor of Sayyid al-Shuhada. Loud salawat Muhammad wa al Muhammad.
بارے دیگر صلوات۔ نہ پوچھئے کہ کیا حسین ہے، نہ پوچھئے کہ کیا حسین ہے، کیا حسین ہے، نہ پوچھئے کہ کیا حسین ہے، خدا کے دی کا نا خدا، خدا کے دی کا نا خدا، ہر ابتدا سے ابتدا کرم کی انتہا حسین ہے، کرم کی انتہا حسین ہے، کرے جو کوئی ہمسری کسی کی کیا مجال ہے، جہاں میں ہر لحاظ سے حسین بے مثال ہے، یہ بات کس قدر ہنسی جو کہہ گئے معین الدین کہ دین کی پناہ حسین ہے، کہ دین کی پناہ حسین ہے، کیا حسین ہے، نہ پوچھئے کہ کیا حسین ہے، کرو گے گر مخالفت غم حسین کی یہاں، وہ حشر ہوگا عشر میں کہ حل حفیظ و حل امان، جہاں بھی چھپنے جاؤ گے کہیں بھی بچ نہ پاؤ گے، جہاں بھی چھپنے جاؤ گے کہیں بھی بچ نہ پاؤ گے، کہ ہر جگہ میرا حسین ہے، کہ ہر جگہ میرا حسین ہے، کیا حسین ہے، نہ پوچھئے کہ کیا حسین ہے جس کی فکر کربلا حسین وہ دماغ ہے، یہ پنجتن کہ انجمن کا پانچواں چراغ ہے، حسن کا پہلا ہم سفر، حسن کا پہلا ہم سفر، علی کا دوسرا پسر، امام تیسرا حسین ہے، نہ پوچھئے کہ کیا حسین ہے، کیا حسین ہے، نہ پوچھئے کہ کیا حسین ہے، بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات محمد۔ میں چاہتا ہوں کہ غازی عباس علیہ السلام کے لیے بھی پڑھا جائے کہ خزانے کی جو قیمت ہے، خزانے کی جو قیمت ہے، اسے الماس کہتے ہیں، تمنا پانی کی ہوتی ہے تب تو پیاس کہتے ہیں، تمنا پانی کی ہوتی ہے تب تو پیاس کہتے ہیں، اور جہاں پیتے ہیں سب پانی اسے کہتے ہیں دریا، جہاں پیتے ہیں सब पानी उसे कहते हैं दरिया, जो दरिया को पिलाता हो उसे अब्बास कहते हैं, जो दरिया को पिलाता हो उसे अब्बास कहते हैं। वर मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद बुलंदतर सलावात।
Jazakallah. Allah salawat Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And inshallah, brothers, as I had also mentioned yesterday, that truly we all gather here, and all lovers of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam gather around the world to their centers, and they all gather on the one name, and that is of Hussein alayhi afdal salatu wassalam. And however, when they gather, obviously they come for the love of Hussein, but each and every person in that majlis, in that gathering, has some desires, some legitimate desires, has some troubles, has some difficulties. Some of the brothers or sisters from our community may be sick, may know someone who's sick and they're in need of our prayers. Some of those might be traveling and they still haven't reached their home safely. Some may be facing difficulty financially in terms of health or elsewise. So let us recite this ayah Karima 5 times for the fulfilling of all the legitimate desires, for the speedy and complete recovery for those who are sick from amongst us, for those who haven't been blessed with the ni'mah of children, for inshallah, may Allah, by the next Muharram they are blessed with children. For those who have children, may they become salih and the true followers and lovers of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. For those who haven't found or haven't entered the bond of marriage, this holy bond of marriage, and they're looking for that right partner, inshallah, may Allah ease this process for them. For the ulama uzam, for their well-being, for their health, and for their prosperity, and for the hastening of the advent of al-Hujjah, and for us being counted amongst the ashab and sarwa'wan. Let us recite the ayah Karima 5 times. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. أَمَّا يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ 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 أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. The other announcement is that we've put up the sign-up sheet for the recitation. So any brothers who would like to recite, participate in the Quran recitation. Alhamdulillah, we've had this brother who had this beautiful recitation today, and he's been here for the past 2 years. I've witnessing since I've been here for the past 2 years. But mashallah, may Allah give him health, a long health, and for all the reciters and all the hadirin over here, all the sami'een, may Allah keep them all happy, healthy, and prosper in this world, and they're successful in this world and the hereafter, inshallah. So anyone would like to recite, they can put their name on the sign-up sheet. The recitations for Matam, for Nawha, for Marsiya, for Ziyarat Ashura that we have daily on these nights, alhamdulillah. The other announcement is regarding the parking. As I've mentioned, the parking lot is available for the IHS and the neighboring lot where we can park during these nights. However, do leave these 2 parking spots on the right-hand side empty so they can facilitate for people to pick up and drop, inshallah, drop off. Today, Sheikh Mohammed Ali Ismail will be talking on the topic of Islamic anger management, and recalling his first talk, as he had identified one of those common problems of being anxiety or stress, very commonly found in this world, and unfortunately from our community as well. And he has also given practical solutions within his talk. And inshallah today he'll be talking on this Islamic anger management that probably most of us can relate to, including me on the first place. So without any further delay, I'd like to request Sheikh Mohammed Ali Ismail to address this majlis. Salawat Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
ای حسین تشنلب مادر فدای حنجرت، ای حسین تشنلب مادر فدای حنجرت، مادرت زهرا فدای راس خاکسترت. قربانین بودند کوفیان ای نور عین در ازای اکبر و عباس فضل و جعفر است بر کشاکام زبان اقتدار حرکات بر قصر تا به کفه پای محمد صلوات
اللهم صل على محمد و آل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وله الحمد في الآخرة وهو الحكيم الخبير. والصلاة والسلام على المبعوث إلى كافة الورى بشيرا ونذيرا وداعيا إلى الله بإذنه وسراجا منيرا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته أئمة الهدى ومصابيح الدجى الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد فقد قال أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب صلوات الله وسلامه عليه اللهم صل على محمد إياك والغضب فأوله جنون وآخره ندم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. My respected elders, brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. As you heard a few moments ago, the title of tonight's lecture is Islamic Anger Management. And we all get angry from time to time. But it is absolutely essential that we manage this anger in an effective way in order for us to develop spiritually. So I'd like to begin by posing two questions because the answers to these two questions will form a very solid foundation for the rest of this lecture. The first question I'd like to pose is anger always a bad thing? And secondly, what happens to us when we are angry? So let's look at these two questions. And like I said, the answers will form the basis for the rest of this lecture. First of all, is anger always a bad thing? Well, the answer to that is that anger in itself, intrinsically, it is neither a virtue nor a vice. It is neither a good thing nor a bad thing in itself. It all depends on the situation, it all depends on how we use it and the extent to which we get angry. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's blessed us and He's created us with the faculty of anger. In Arabic, it is known as quwwa ghadabiyya. The faculty of anger is something that has been given to us from birth by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And of course, Allah does not do anything, He does not create anything without wisdom. So what is the wisdom? Why has Allah given us this faculty of anger if it is a bad thing, for example? Well, with anger we see that we can defend ourselves. If we did not have this faculty of anger, quwwa ghadabiyya, we would not be able to defend ourselves. We would not be able to defend the things that we hold dear, such as our religion, such as our family, property, values, principles. We would not be able to defend those things if we did not have the faculty of anger. Also, we would not be able to stand up for the truth in such a brilliant way as we can do if we did not have the faculty of anger. So definitely anger in itself is neither a virtue nor a vice. It all depends on how we use it, the situation we're in, and how much we employ it. So that is the first question. Now, with regards to the second question, what happens to us when we get angry? This is extremely important for us to know. What happens to our body when we are getting angry so that we can recognize the signs, we can understand what our body is going through, and we can therefore take steps to effectively manage this anger? A number of things happens to us when we get angry, and this is what is told to us by the experts in the medical profession. They say that when a person gets angry, his body has two natural tendencies. The first natural tendency is known as the flight response, and the second natural tendency is known as the fight response. Now, what does this mean? It means that when we get angry, our body will go automatically, it'll want to go automatically into either the fight response mode or the flight response mode. This means that when we get angry, we will either want to take a stance and fight. So we fight that perceived threat, that perceived danger, that perceived harm, whatever it might be. We want to fight it. Automatically our body is going to take up this response. Secondly, what the experts in the medical profession say is that no, you can also take up the flight response. This means that now we do not choose to fight, rather we choose to turn and take flight, meaning we flee rather than stay and combat. Now, these are the two natural tendencies of our body, and I'm sure you can all recognize these. Think about the last time when you were angry. Either, probably naturally speaking, you wanted to fight or take flight. Now, what happens to the body? This is so important. There are a number of changes that our body goes through. First of all, adrenaline pumps through our body. Secondly, our heart rate increases. Thirdly, our respiration rate increases. Fourthly, our blood pressure increases. Fifthly, our body temperature rises. Sixthly, we begin to sweat. Seventhly, all of our energy goes towards our muscles in preparation for physical exertion. Another thing that happens to us is that even our minds become more focused. All of our energy is channeled towards a particular direction. In short, we become much more powerful. When we are angry, they say that we become 3 times or even more times powerful than when we are calm. You think about it. How much somebody can do, what they can do when they are angry compared to when they are calm. Now, the key point here though, from an Islamic spiritual perspective, when we want to develop and move closer towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is to realize with increased power comes increased responsibility. Now that we are angry, our body has gone through all of these changes, and now that we have become so much more powerful, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is looking at us even more. That are we going to exercise this extra power in a responsible way or not? So now, my brothers and sisters, this is the key thing. At this point in time, it is a very critical moment for us to make the right decision. Are we going to fight, or are we going to take flight, or is there a third option? These two options I've been talking about, fighting and taking flight, are the natural tendencies of the body, of animals in general. If you have a look at the animal kingdom, when there's a perceived threat or the animal is angered in some way, they will either fight or they will flee and take flight. It's the same with us. But is there a third option? And in fact there is. The third option is controlled restraint. Being qadhimul ghayth. What does qadhimul ghayth mean? It means somebody who's able to restrain their wrath and their anger in a controlled manner. Is this another option for us? Well, inshallah tonight I would like to look at this in much more detail. First of all though, we have to realize that actually there is no correct answer that covers all scenarios. No one can say that you must always take fight. No one can say you must always take flight or fight or exercise restraint. No one can say that, because It depends on the situation. It depends on the person, the threat, and all the surrounding circumstances. But what we can do is look at the Quran, look at the examples of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, and get general guidelines. We can get guidelines that will help us decide in any situation, should I fight, should I flee, or should I restrain my anger? These are the things, inshallah, that I would like to put forward tonight, beginning with the loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Now let's have a look at what the Quran tells us, and in particular, one example that is mentioned to us in Surah Al-A'raf, verse number 115. This is an amazing example which we can gain lots of lessons from. Here, we have an example of a prophet. No, not a prophet. An Ulul Azam prophet who fights. He does not restrain his anger, nor does he flee. That example is of Nabi Musa, ala nabiyina wa alayhi wa alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. وَلَمَّا رَجَعَ مُوسَى إِلَىٰ قَوْمِهِ غَضْبَانَ أَسِفًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that when Nabi Musa returned to his people, in what state? Ghadaban. He had ghadab. He was angry. Allah very clearly mentions the word ghadaban. He was definitely angry. And he was asifa, meaning he was grieved because of what he saw. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the whole scenario. قَالَ بِئْسَ مَا خَلَّفْتَمُونِ مِنْ بَعْدِي. How evil has your conduct been in my absence? So, what is he referring to here? And then I will tell you what his response was. Let me put it in context what he's referring to when he says how bad your conduct has been in my absence. You all know the story. Basically, Nabi Musa had spent how many days and nights discussing with his Lord? 40 days and nights on the mountain of Tur. In that meeting, he received the Torah, these tablets. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had informed him that your people have taken to shirk. They have taken to polytheism and they're worshipping a calf that they themselves have made. So now when he comes to his people and he sees this, this is the state he is in. He is angry and he is grieved by what he sees. So what he does is, he takes three actions. All of these actions tell us he is putting up a fight. So first of all, like I said, he tells his people how bad your conduct has been in my absence. So basically he reprimands them. He tells them off. That's the first thing he does. But look at this. وَأَلْقَى الْأَرْوَاحِ. What does he do? He throws those tablets down. The tablets that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given him. Torah. He throws them down. وَأَخَذَ بِرَأْسِ أَخِي يَجُرُّهُ إِلَيْهِ. Now, not only does he reprimand his people, not only does he throw down the tablets, but he grabs the hair of his brother Harun, who is also a prophet, remember, and he pulls Harun towards him by his hair. Allahu Akbar. How can we explain this behavior from not just a prophet, but from an Ulul Azam prophet? Ulul Azam means those 5 great prophets that came down with new legislation. There's only 5 of them. Nabi Nuh, Nabi Ibrahim, Nabi Musa, Nabi Isa, and Nabi al-Akram, Muhammad al-Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. How can we explain this behavior from such a great prophet after he has just come down from a meeting with his Lord for 40 days and nights? Now, this is where you see, my brothers and sisters, the whole discussion of anger comes in. Like I was saying, there is no right or wrong answer that covers every scenario. Sometimes we will have to put up a fight, but sometimes we'll have to flee, sometimes we'll have to restrain our anger. Let's have a look at the guidance that we can get from the Quran and from the Hadith and from scholars of tafsir as well. What happened here was in fact Nabi Musa, in his anger, what he was actually doing was that he was manifesting the ghadab and the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on his people. This is what he was doing. He was not angry for a worldly reason. He was not angry to satisfy his own ego. He was angry because he was reflecting the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the people. Now, let's have a look at this in more detail. What happened was, his people were engaging in shirk. Surah Luqman verse 13 tells us, Inna shirka la zulmun azim. Shirk is a great injustice. So what he had to do was to show a response that would turn his people 180 degrees. From shirk, he had to bring them back to tawheed. He could not have done it in any other way. His response was the perfect response in that situation. Let me explain further. His people had now gone down a very different route to the one he had taken them. The Bani Israel were at a very critical junction in their history. If they had carried on like that, who knows where the Bani Israel would have ended. So what he had to do was to bring them round to the worship of one God. His expression had to be the severest of expressions. His reaction had to be the harshest of reactions. Otherwise, they would not have realized how angry he is and how wrong their practice was. He had to stir in them enough emotion to bring them back to the worship of one God. He could not have had a more subdued response, a calmer response. Why? Well, if he had had that type of response, a calmer one, more subdued, then they might have thought that actually what we are doing is fine. Nabi Musa really approves of what we are doing, or at least he's indifferent to what we are doing. So Nabi Musa had to stir in them this great emotion, and he managed to do that. It was the perfect response. Here we see that the Quran itself is telling us that in some situation, this type of expression of anger is absolutely necessary. So now we have this example. Let's inshallah gain more guidelines from the Quran and the teaching of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So now we want to know, okay, how can we therefore judge correctly when we should take flight, when we should fight, when we should restrain? And in fact, why was that type of anger a good type? What is the bad type? What is the non-divine type? Nabi Musa's anger, we can say, was a divine type of anger because he's expressing and manifesting the ghadab of Allah on the people. So what about non-divine anger, and how can we differentiate the two? I would like to put forward 3 telltale signs, 3 characteristics of each one. When we spot them, we will be able to tell, okay, is it the anger I'm feeling now, is it divine or non-divine? The first telltale sign is that when it is a divine anger, the aql and the intellect controls it. Not that the anger controls the intellect. This is very important. Nabi Musa was in control. He didn't lose it, as we say. He was in control. His aql was controlling his anger, not the other way around. Often when people get angry, it's the other way around. Let me give you some examples. The best example, of course, is none other than that of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, salawatullah wa salamu alayhi. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. You all know the example in the famous story in the Battle of Khandaq. What happened in the Battle of Khandaq? This is an example of the intellect controlling the anger. Amr ibn Abdi Wud, he was the one who came forward. He wanted to fight the believers. He was regarded as the champion of the polytheists. He was known as Farisu Yalyal, because there was before this battle in Khandaq, there was a battle in a place called Yalyal. And Amr ibn Abdi Wud single-handedly defeated the enemy soldiers. So he got this reputation, he got this name, Farisu Yalyal, the horseman warrior of Yalyal. So now he has this battle with Amirul Mu'mineen. Look what happens. Of course, Imam Ali defeats him. But just before he goes to finish him off, Imam Ali is seen to be seated on his chest. Then all of a sudden Imam Ali gets up and he goes for a walk. Then he comes back and then he finishes him off. So then the people ask him, they say, "Oh Mawla, we saw you, you defeated him. You were seated on his chest. What happened that you got up, you went for a walk, you came back and then you finished him off?" He said, "Yes, what happened was, when I was about to kill him, he spat on my face. At that time, I felt angry. But I wanted to make sure that this anger plays no part in me killing him." Allahu Akbar. I wanted to make sure that this anger plays no part in me killing him. I got up, I went for a walk, and I wanted to make sure that I kill him 100% sincerely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allahu Akbar. This is when the intellect controls the anger, making sure that you are in control, not that the anger is in control of you. So that's the first telltale sign of divine anger. Non-divine anger is when the anger is controlling the intellect. The person loses it. He starts acting in all sorts of ways which goes against the religion. This is why Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib, salawatullah wa salamu alayhi, says in that statement that I mentioned at the beginning of this lecture, what does he say? Iyaka wal ghadab. Beware of anger, meaning non-divine anger, right? Because we saw that there is a place for divine anger. Beware of non-divine anger. Why? فَأَوَّلُهُ جُنُونَ وَآخِرُهُ nadam. Allahu Akbar. He says because the beginning of it is madness and the end of it is regret. You think about it. The last time you were angry, and how did it start? Wasn't it madness? I ask myself the same thing. What about the end? How regretful did we feel? Why did I do that? Why did I say that? How can I say that? How can I do that? Imam Ali says, whenever there is non-divine anger, always the beginning is madness, always the ending is regret. You have lost the ability to make good calls. You are not going to make the right judgments. Second telltale sign is that with divine anger, the motive is a divine one. The motive is to uphold the truth, to combat evil. This is why I was saying at the beginning of this talk, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with quwwa ghadabiyya, the faculty of anger. Without this we can't do that. We can't defend and uphold the truth and defend the truth and combat evil. So we have to look at ourselves. Is our niyyah and our intention and motive, is it divine? Are we upholding some truth? Are we combating some evil? Non-divine anger, on the other hand, the motive will be egotistical. It'll be me-centered. Because someone has hurt my feelings, because my ego was hurt, because of some worldly reason perhaps. That's why the person has got angry. Soon as you see that sign, that means it's non-divine anger. Thirdly, and these are all things that I've gathered over a number of years of research in this area, from the Quran and the teaching of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. The third sign of divine anger is that it remains, your actions do not go beyond the bounds of the religion. They remain within the bounds of religion. Whereas non-divine anger, no. Your actions will start going beyond the Sharia. Imam Jafar al-Sadiq salawatullah wa salamu alayhi, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. He says that al-ghadab miftahu kulli shar. Anger, of course, non-divine anger, is the miftah and the key to every evil. Why? Because actions, they start going beyond the boundaries of the Sharia. People start doing things that they're not allowed to do. They start abuse and they start hitting, perhaps getting violent, throwing things, whatever the case might be. If it goes beyond the boundaries of the Sharia, it's a sign that this is not divine anger. It's the non-divine type. Let me illustrate all of these things by means of an example. These three telltale signs can all be seen in this anecdote. And inshallah, as I'm going through it, I'm sure you'll be able to pinpoint exactly where these three things are. So once there was a man whose pride and joy was his car, right? Now, I don't know what it is about men and their cars, but this was the case with him. His pride and joy was this car he had, and he's fixing it. So now his son is about 5 years old. All of a sudden, he hears a noise. And he sees that his son has taken a stone and is making scratches on the side of the car. So now this father, he gets angry. And all of a sudden he grabs the hand of his child and he hits it. However, he doesn't realize that in his hand he's still holding a wrench. Okay? You see how it all ties in. The beginning is madness, the end is regret. We'll see what happens. As he hits the hand of his child, he crushes all his fingers. So now, the father takes him to the hospital. As he's in hospital, the child raises up his hand and he says, Baba, when will my fingers grow back? And he says, Baba, I'm sorry. This breaks the heart of the father. But what makes it even worse is when he goes home with the child. Because when he goes home with the child, he says to himself, let me just have a look at what, this kid of mine was doing. Let me just have a look at what the scratches were, how bad they were. So he goes and he has a look at the side of the car to see the damage. You know what he sees? He sees that his child had scratched the words, I love you, Daddy. Now you see what Amir al-Mu'mineen says? Beware of this non-divine anger. The beginning is madness, the end is regret. Look at all the three telltale signs that were there. First of all, what was in charge? Was it his aql or was it his anger? It was his anger. He didn't even think about it. He just hit him over the hand, not even realizing he's got a wrench in his hand. Secondly, the motive. It wasn't divine. It was egotistical. It was something worldly. Thirdly, his actions went beyond the bounds of the Sharia. You can't hit a child like that. So you see all of these telltale signs we see in this example, and truly Amir al-Mu'mineen has given us a beautiful gem of wisdom and treasure when he says, Iyaka wal ghadab fa awwaluhu junoon wa akhiruhu nadam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So now I would like to present, inshallah, some practical points and some tips as to how we can appease and pacify our non-divine anger. Like I was saying, the focus of these lectures will also be on practical things that we can take away and implement in our lives soon as we leave the majlis. So tonight, inshallah, I will look at 4 practical ways, and all of these 4 ways are depicted by a mnemonic. A simple tool for memorizing the 4 ways using ABCD. So, the first way to make sure we are in control of the non-divine anger, the A stands for acknowledging that it is non-divine anger. If we don't acknowledge that this anger I'm feeling now is not of the good type, we won't get anywhere. So the A is acknowledging it is non-divine. How do we do that? We look at those 3 telltale signs. Is it anger that's controlling me, or am I controlling the anger? What is my motive? Am I going beyond the bounds of the Sharia? If it is that, then we have to realize that our judgment is going to be impaired. We're not going to make the right call. We're going to start with something crazy. We're going to end with regret. The B stands for bearing Allah in mind. When we want to control this non-divine anger, we have to bear Allah in mind. We have to remember Allah. Imam Jafar al-Sadiq salawatullah wa salamu alayhi, he has this beautiful tradition about bearing Allah in mind. He says that Allah revealed to one of his prophets, O son of Adam, remember me in the midst of your anger, and I will remember you in the midst of my wrath. Remember me when you are angry, and I will remember you when I'm angry, basically. And I will not obliterate you when I obliterate others. And then he says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that when you feel angry, be satisfied for me as an avenger for you. Meaning that let us think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you be my avenger. For Allah says, for my revenge on your behalf is better than your revenge for yourself. Bearing Allah in mind. It means that, we have that saying, choose carefully the battles you fight. Don't try to win and fight every single battle. Choose your battles carefully. It applies here as well. Not every single battle we need to fight. Some things just leave it for Allah to sort out. Do tawakkul on Allah. For He says that my revenge on your behalf is better than your revenge for yourself. That's bearing Allah in mind. Now, again, still on the B, the bearing Allah in mind, 3 very quick and practical tips how we can do this better. How can we bear Allah in mind when we are trying to control the non-divine anger? First of all, what is known as hawqala. Hawqala means saying La hawla wa la quwwata illa, and you can add Billahi al-Ali al-Azim. This means that there is no power or strength except that of Allah, the elevated and the exalted and the great one. So we recite hawqala. This helps us to bear Allah in mind. 1, hawqala. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah al-Ali al-Azim. Secondly, sajda. We are told that go into sajda. Now, of course, some of these things will be practical in certain situations, like you might be at home. You might have, for example, seen an email that's driven you crazy. You might have received a text message that's really making you mad. Here, you have the opportunity to do sajda. So we're not talking about a situation on the street, for example, right? Where you get angry, you can't do it there. Some things are applicable in some places, some things cannot be done in other places. But this is how it is. So instead of immediately responding to that email, immediately responding to that text because you're angry, no, take a time out. Do hawqala, go into sajda. You'll see the effect of that. And then you'll be able to respond to that text, that email, whatever it is, in a much more effective manner. And thirdly, ista'adha. I spoke about this yesterday. Today I'll just mention a few more things. Ista'adha is seeking refuge in Allah. But not just saying, A'udhu billah minash shaitani rajim. No, it is doing it practically. Really and truly seeking ista'adha. Let me give you an idea of what this is all about. There's a story that perhaps you've heard about it. This is one version of it. There are other versions as well. About Sheikh Murtaza al-Ansari. Sheikh Murtaza al-Ansari was this great mujtahid. He's known as Khatimul Fuqaha wal Mujtahideen, the seal of the jurists and the mujtahids. He has these wonderful works that perhaps you have heard of. Some of you might have even studied in the Hawzat. They are still taught and studied today, such as Ar-Rasail. These are works, Al-Maqasib in fiqh and usul, that are taught and studied today. Anyway, it's about him. So one day, one of his students is having a dream. Now in his dream, he sees Shaitan. Shaitan in his dream has all of these ropes in front of him. And he asks Shaitan that, what are these ropes? And Shaitan says that, well, I use them to throw over people and to pull them towards me. And he sees that they're all different sizes, some are thin, some are thick. And he says that, well, why are they like this in all different forms and shapes? And he says that the one who has more faith, I use a thicker one. The one who has least faith, I use a thinner one. So then he sees one that is cut. So he asks him about that. Shaitan replies that last night I wanted to use this very thick rope on Sheikh Murtaza al-Ansari. However, on 3 separate occasions, when I tried to throw it over him and pull him towards me, the rope was cut. So now this person, the student of Sheikh Murtaza Ansari, he wakes up, he goes to Sheikh's house and he tells him the dream. Sheikh Murtaza Ansari says to him, you know what? Last night, my wife was giving birth to our child. And I needed to procure some things for the childbirth, but I didn't have any money. The only money I had was an amanat, was some money that had been entrusted to me. And I went towards that amanat on 3 separate occasions. However, each time I wanted to go and take it, I did isti'adha. I sought refuge in Allah from the accursed shaitan. You see, this is isti'adha. Not just saying, A'udhu billahi minash shaitani rajeem, but really and practically doing something. So he says, on 3 separate occasions, I went there and I was going to take it, but then I did isti'adha and I came back. And in the end, I didn't take anything. And as it happens, alhamdulillah, my wife gave birth and there was no problems. So now, you see, my brothers and sisters, this is isti'adha. But just to complete the story, because there's a humorous end to it, this person in his dream, he asks Shaitan that, what type of rope do you have for me? Right? Perhaps it's the type of question that we would all love to know. Right? What type of rope Shaitan has for us? You know what Shaitan replies to him? He says, actually for you, I don't even need a rope. Meaning I've already got you in my hands. Right? So in any case, this is just a dream. It's not authoritative for us. It's not an ayah. It's not an authentic tradition. It's just an anecdote. But the point being, the point is valid. That when we do isti'adha, it should be true, practical isti'adha, moving away from the infiltration and the whisperings of shaitan or rajim. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The C is for changing position. This means that when we are wanting to combat our non-divine anger, we should change our position. We are told that if you are standing, for example, sit down. If you can, even leave the place, go to a different environment, change your position, don't stay there. Also, we are told that, especially in non-Islamic anger management courses, you might have come across these in your work or in other areas. They have lots of these type of anger management courses, but of course, from a non-Islamic perspective, they say a similar thing. They say exercise. That is a very effective thing, especially if it's a regular type of anger. And also we are told in our traditions, now this is something truly amazing. The C for changing position also means if there's no mahramiyya problem, meaning there's no problem of touching that person from a shari'i perspective, touch that person. The person that you are angry with, touch that person. Now Allahu Akbar, we don't know why and the philosophy behind some of these things, but in any case this is there. So this is C. The D and the final thing that we can do, it stands for drench. Drench our anger with water. What does that mean? We are told in our traditions, when you want to control your non-divine anger, perform wudu. Again, like I said, if it's practical to do that, go and perform wudu. It has an amazing impact. In some others, it says also perform ghusl. You see, so it's like you're drenching the fire of anger with water. So as a summary, before we mention a few words of Masa'ib, Islamic anger management tells us that indeed we must control the non-divine type of anger in order to progress spiritually towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are told that naturally our body has 2 instincts, 2 responses when we are angry, flight or fight. There is a 3rd response which is restraining our anger. How and when all depends on the teachings of the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt. We saw the example of Nabi Musa that he took up fight because that was the most perfect situation to have that response. Other times we'll have to decide. How do we decide? we look at the telltale signs. First of all, that our anger is controlling our intellect. It means it's non-divine. Secondly, that our motive is not divine, it's worldly or egotistical. And thirdly, that our actions are going beyond the Sharia. These are all signs of non-divine anger. We are told that the beginning will be madness, the end will be regret. How do we pacify, control, and appease our non-divine anger? We use the simple mnemonic ABCD. A stands for acknowledging it is non-divine anger by looking at those telltale signs. B is bearing Allah in mind by doing those three things, sajda, hawkala, and isti'adha. C is changing our position. D is drenching with water. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Sallallahu alayka ya Aba Abdillah. Sallallahu alayka ya ibna Rasulillah. صلى الله عليك وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. Zuhair ibn al-Qayn was not even initially a supporter of Abu Abdullah. Indeed, he was on his way, just like Imam Hussein, to Kufa. But he was always trying to keep a distance between him and the camp of Abu Abdullah, until they came to a point called Zurud. Over there, Zuhair ibn Qayn now puts his camp near that of Abu Abdullah, because it seems there was water there and there was good access to it there. As he's in that camp, near the camp of Abu Abdullah, a messenger comes from Imam Hussein to Zuhair ibn al-Qayn. At that point, Zuhair is having his meal with his wife and some others. What does the messenger tell him? The messenger tells him that Zuhair, Imam Hussein invites you. Zuhair, at that point, he's eating and he's hesitant. Should he accept his invitation or not? So now his wife sees his hesitation. She says to him, "Oh Zuhair, why are you hesitating? Look who's calling you. It is the son of Fatima Zahra. It is the son of Ali al-Murtaza. It is the grandson of the Prophet. Just go." So now, my brothers and sisters, Zuhair, he goes to the camp of Imam Hussein. We don't know what transpires between them. But when Zuhair comes out of the tent, he is a different person. He is totally enlightened. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us that tawfiq to also accept the invitation of our Imam. May Allah give us the tawfiq to be enlightened by our Imam, inshallah. So now when he comes back to the camp, he says to his wife, pack everything away. He says to her that go back to your father. He says, I don't want you to be harmed on my account. She says to him, Zuhair, go, it's up to you. This is in fact the best choice you can make. But Zuhair, I have one request, and that is on the day of resurrection, you remember me when you are near Hussein's grandfather. Both of them knew this would be the last time they would meet each other. In fact, on the night of Ashura, you will recall that Abu Abdullah addresses his companions. What loyal companions they were. He says to them that I know of no more righteous companions than yourselves. He says that take the darkness of this night and go. You don't have to be with me. The people want me, not you. But look at the overwhelming response of the companions. Look at the loyalty of the companions. Zuhair ibn al-Qayn, he says that, oh Hussein, even if I was killed and brought back to life, and this happened to me 70 times, I would never leave your side. It is also reported Sa'id ibn Abdullah, who was also a great prominent person of Kufa. He was someone who helped Muslim ibn Aqil as well. He stands up. He says, "Oh Hussein, if I was killed, I was brought back to life and killed, and this happened to me 70 times, I wouldn't, and even if my body was strewn all over the place, I would rather do that than leave your side and stop defending you." This is the loyalty and the support of these great companions. Let's honor them tonight with our tears. Let's honor them tonight by mourning them sincerely and openly, my brothers and sisters. Now on the day of Ashura, look what they do. Was it just words? Not at all. They put their words into actions. First of all, Zuhair ibn al-Qayn, Imam Hussein appoints him to be the leader of the right wing of his troops. Zuhair ibn al-Qayn is the leader of the right side. Habib ibn Muzahir, the leader on the left side. Imam Hussein is in the center. He gives his standard to Abul Fazl al-Abbas. Zuhair ibn al-Qayn wants to go and fight. He puts his hand on the shoulder of Hussein as if to say, "Oh Mawla, give me permission to go." He goes and fights, but as he does so, he addresses Imam Hussein. He says, "Ya Hussein, today I will meet your grandfather and your brother Hassan and Amir al-Mu'mineen." He fights bravely, but eventually he is killed after he has killed many people. At that time, Abu Abdullah comes to him and he says that, "Oh Zuhair, may you never be distant from us, the Ahlul Bayt." How about afterwards though, my brothers and sisters? Look what happens afterwards. It is reported by some people that wife of his, who was so good and loyal, she now sends a servant with a coffin. She sends a servant with a coffin to cover the body of her husband Zuhair. The servant, he goes to Karbala with this coffin. But when he gets to Karbala, what does he see? He sees Hussein without any coffin. He sees Hazrat Abul Fazl Abbas with his arms chopped off without any coffin. He sees Ali Akbar's bones all crushed to pieces without any coffin. He sees Qasim having been trampled under the horses without any coffin. He says to himself, "How can I cover the body of my master when Hussein and the Ahlul Bayt are lying like this under the hot sun?" He goes back to the wife of Zuhair, and he probably is thinking that I'll be told off. He's probably thinking, I have failed in my duty. She told me to cover the body, but I didn't. But what does the wife of Zuhair say to him? She congratulates him. She says, "Well done." Perhaps she's thinking, how could she have answered Fatima al-Zahra on the day of judgment that, "Oh Fatima, I shrouded the body of my husband, but I did not shroud the body of your son Hussein." As for Sa'id ibn Abdullah, look at this loyal companion of Abu Abdullah. What happened to him? That other person who said those amazing things on the night of Ashura. Sa'id ibn Abdullah, you know what he does? When Imam Hussein on the day of Ashura, at the time of Dhuhr, he stands up to give his prayers to Allah. Sa'id ibn Abdullah and others, they stand in front of him and they form a human shield so that the arrows hit them and they don't hit their master Imam Hussein. Just think for a minute. Just imagine how painful it would be to stand and to be struck by arrows. Just how painful it would be for arrows to penetrate right through your flesh. At this point, Sa'id ibn Abdullah, it is reported, he was implanted with 13 arrows. The wounds were too much for him. He begins to fall. He hits the ground. But what does he say in his last moments? He calls out to Imam Hussein, "Ya Hussein, oh Imam Hussein, have I fulfilled my obligations?" Imam says yes, and you will enter paradise before me. Allah la'natullah ala al-qawmi adh-dhalimin. Wa sayadamul ladhina dhalamu ayyamun qalbin yanqalibun. Oh Allah, by the right of Abu Abdullah and all the shuhada and usra of Karbala, oh Allah, enable us to manage our anger in a way that you are happy, inshallah. Oh Allah, enable us to control our anger so that you are not angry with us. Oh Allah, enable us to always live and die with the wilayah of the Ahlul Bayt. Oh Allah, increase our love for the Ahlul Bayt. Oh Allah, enable us to always act according to the teachings of the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt. Oh Allah, there are many people around the world, in Myanmar, in Mexico, in America, people who have suffered at the hands of natural disasters, and they are facing other difficulties as well. Oh Allah, bring all those who are facing difficulties relief, inshallah. Oh Allah, forgive us and our forefathers for our sins. Oh Allah, our last but not least prayer is that you hasten the appearance of the 12th Holy Imam, Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Faraju Sharif, Ya Hussein.
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Hussein, Ya 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 Hussein.
یا رب کوئی معصومہ زندہ میں نہ تنہا ہو، یا رب کوئی معصومہ زندہ میں نہ تنہا ہو، یا رب کوئی معصومہ زندہ میں نہ تنہا ہو، یا رب کوئی معصومہ زندہ میں نہ تنہا ہو، یا رب کوئی معصومہ زندہ میں نہ تنہا ہو، پابند نہ ہوا ہے، ہائے پابند نہ ہوا ہے، رونے پہ نہ پہرا ہو، یا رب کوئی معصومہ زندہ میں نہ تنہا ہو، یا رب کوئی معصومہ زندہ میں نہ تنہا ہو۔ تھی جس کو نیند آتی شبیر کے سینے پر، تھی جس کو نیند آتی شبیر کے سینے پر، زندہ در زندہ ہائے زندہ در زندہ اس کے لیے قضا ہو، یا رب کوئی معصومہ زندہ میں نہ تنہا ہو، یا رب کوئی معصومہ زندہ میں نہ تنہا ہو۔ زندانوں سے آتی تھی آواز سسکنے کی، زندانوں سے آتی تھی آواز سسکنے کی، جیسے کہ سکینہ کو ہے، جیسے کہ سکینہ کو ہر زندان رو رہا ہو، یا رب کوئی معصومہ زندہ میں نہ تنہا ہو، یا رب کوئی معصومہ زندہ میں نہ تنہا ہو۔ ٹکرائے نہ وہ یوں کیوں کر زندہ کی دیواروں سے، ٹکرائے نہ وہ یوں کر زندہ کی دیواروں سے، بائی سے اور پھوپھی سے، ہائے بائی سے اور پھوپھی سے جس کو جدا کیا ہو، یا رب کوئی معصومہ زندہ میں نہ تنہا ہو، یا رب کوئی معصومہ
زندہ میں نہ تنہا ہو.
زندانوں سے آتی تھی عید نجفی یاد سکینہ, دل رو رو کہہ رہا ہے, ہائے دل رو رو کہہ رہا ہے, اب نہ اجالا ہو یا رب کوئی معصومہ, زندہ میں نہ تنہا ہو یا رب کوئی معصومہ, زندہ میں نہ تنہا ہو. بر محمد وآل محمد صلوات.
یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین. سجاد میں زینب ہوں, میرے سر پہ ردا کوئی نہیں, بازار جفا سجاد میں زینب ہوں, میرے سر پہ ردا کوئی نہیں, بازار جفا سجاد میں زینب ہوں, میرے سر پہ ردا کوئی نہیں, بازار جفا. مجمع ہے کوفیوں کا, میرے چلنے کی جا کوئی نہیں, بازار جفا سجاد میں زینب ہوں, میرے سر پہ ردا کوئی نہیں, بازار جفا سجاد میں زینب ہوں, میرے سر پہ ردا کوئی نہیں, بازار جفا. سجاد میرے سر سے آدھا نے چھینی چادر, بلوے میں نبی زادی پھر آئی گئی در در, مل جائے ردا مجھ کو اور میری دعا کوئی نہیں, بازار جفا سجاد میں زینب ہوں, میرے سر پہ ردا کوئی نہیں, بازار جفا سجاد میں زینب ہوں, میرے سر پہ ردا کوئی نہیں, بازار جفا. سجاد چلوں کیسے لاکھوں میں تماشائی, یاد آتا رہے کہ عباس میرا بھائی, فریاد کروں کس سے, اس سے بڑا رب کوئی نہیں, بازار جفا سجاد میں زینب ہوں, میرے سر پہ ردا کوئی نہیں, بازار جفا سجاد میں زینب ہوں, میرے سر پہ ردا کوئی نہیں, بازار جفا. سجاد میرے دل کو یہ درد ستاتا ہے, سرغازی کا نیزے سے جب خاک پہ آتا ہے, سر میرا کھلا دیکھے غم اس سے بڑا کوئی نہیں, بازار جفا سجاد میں زینب ہوں, میرے سر پہ ردا کوئی نہیں, بازار جفا سجاد میں زینب ہوں, میرے سر پہ ردا کوئی نہیں, بازار جفا. معلوم ہے آدا کو غازی کی بہن ہوں میں, بے دست ہے وہ غازی پابند رسن ہوں میں, یاد آئے وفا اس کی جب پاس رہا کوئی نہیں, بازار جفا سجاد میں زینب ہوں, میرے سر پہ ردا کوئی نہیں, بازار جفا سجاد میں زینب ہوں, میرے سر پہ ردا کوئی نہیں, بازار جفا. مجبور ہوں بے بس ہوں, میں رو بھی نہیں سکتی,
दुर्रों की अज़ियत से मैं सो भी नहीं सकती, इस दर्जे मुसीबत में हमदर्द मेरा कोई नहीं। बाज़ार जफ़ा सज्जाद में ज़ैनब हूँ, मेरे सर पे रिदा कोई नहीं। बाज़ार जफ़ा सज्जाद में ज़ैनब हूँ, मेरे सर पे रिदा कोई नहीं। बाज़ार जफ़ा मजमा है कूफियों का, मेरे चलने की चाह कोई नहीं। बाज़ार जफ़ा सज्जाद में ज़ैनब हूँ, मेरे सर पे रिदा कोई नहीं। बाज़ार जफ़ा
या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन, सल्लु अला मुहम्मद व आलि मुहम्मद। मुतवज्जे ज़ियाद आशूरा।
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله، السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين وابن سيد الوصيين، السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء سيدتي نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثاره والوتر الموتور، السلام عليك وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك، عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار. يا أبا عبد الله، لقد عظمت الرزية وجلت وعظمت المصيبة بك علينا وعلى جميع أهل الإسلام، وجلت وعظمت مصيبتك في السماوات على جميع أهل السماوات، فلعن الله أمة أسست أساس الظلم والجور عليكم أهل البيت، ولعن الله أمة دفعتكم عن مقامكم وأزالتكم عن مراتبكم التي رتبكم الله فيها، ولعن الله أمة قتلتكم، ولعن الله الممهدين لهم بالتمكين من قتالكم. برأت إلى الله وإليكم منهم ومن أشياعهم وأتباعهم وأوليائهم. يا أبا عبد الله، إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم إلى يوم القيامة. إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم إلى يوم القيامة. ولعن الله آل زياد وآل مروان، ولعن الله بني أمية قاطبة، ولعن الله ابن مرجان، ولعن الله عمر بن سعد، ولعن الله شمرة، ولعن الله أمة أسرجت وألجمت وتنقبت لقتالك. بأبي أنت وأمي، لقد عظم مصابي بك، فأسأل الله الذي أكرم مقامك وأكرمني بك أن يرزقني طلب ثارك مع إمام منصور من أهل بيت محمد صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم اجعلني عندك وجيها بالحسين عليه السلام في الدنيا والآخرة. يا أبا عبد الله، إني أتقرب إلى الله وإلى رسوله وإلى أمير المؤمنين وإلى فاطمة وإلى الحسن وإليك بموالاتك وبالبراءة ممن قاتلك والجور عليكم، وأبرأ إلى الله وإلى رسوله ممن أسس أساس ذلك وبنى عليه بنيانه وجرى في ظلمه وجوره عليكم وعلى أشياعكم. برأت إلى الله وإليكم منهم، وأتقرب إلى الله ثم إليكم بموالاتكم وموالاة وليكم وبالبراءة من أعدائكم والناصبين لكم الحرب وبالبراءة من أشياعهم وأتباعهم. إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم وولي لمن والاكم وعدو لمن عاداكم. إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم وولي لمن والاكم وعدو لمن عاداكم. فأسأل الله الذي أكرمني بمعرفتكم ومعرفة أوليائكم ورزقني البراءة من أعدائكم أن يجعلني معكم في الدنيا والآخرة، وأن يثبت لي عندكم قدم صدق في الدنيا والآخرة، وأسأله أن يبلغني المقام المحمود لكم عند الله، وأن يرزقني طلب ثاركم مع إمام هدى ظاهر ناطق بالحق منكم. وأسأل الله بحقكم وبالشان الذي لكم عنده أن يعطيني بمصابيبكم أفضل ما يعطي مصابا بمصيبته، مصيبة ما أعظمها وأعظم رزيتها في الإسلام وفي جميع السماوات والأرض. اللهم اجعلني في مقامي هذا ممن تناله منك صلوات ورحمة ومغفرة. اللهم اجعل محياي محيا محمد وآل محمد، ومماتي ممات محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إن هذا يوم تبركت به بنو أمية وابن آكلة الأكباد اللعين ابن اللعين على لسانك ولسان نبيك في كل موطن وموقف وقف فيه نبيك. اللهم لعن أبا سفيان ومعاوية ويزيد بن معاوية، عليهم منك اللعنة أبد الآبدين. وهذا يوم فرحت به آل زياد وآل مروان بقتلهم الحسين صلوات الله عليه. اللهم فضاعف عليهم اللعن منك والعذاب الأليم. اللهم إني أتقرب إليك في هذا اليوم وفي موقفي هذا وأيام حياتي بالبراءة منهم واللعنة عليهم وبالموالاة لنبيك وآل نبيك عليه وعليهم السلام. اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له على ذلك. اللهم لعن العصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايعت وبايعت وتابعت على قتله. اللهم لعنهم جميعا. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. اللهم خص أنت أول ظالم باللعن مني، وابدأ به أولا ثم لعن الثاني والثالث والرابع. اللهم لعن يزيد خامسا، ولعن عبيد الله بن زياد وابن مرجان وعمر بن سعد وشمرة وآل أبي سفيان وآل زياد وآل مروان إلى يوم القيامة. سجدة. اللهم لك الحمد حمد الشاكرين لك على مصابهم. الحمد لله على عظيم رزيتي. اللهم ارزقني شفاعة الحسين يوم الورود، وثبت لي قدم صدق عندك مع الحسين وأصحاب الحسين الذين بذلوا مهجهم دون الحسين عليه السلام. اللهم صل على